future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Hello, everyone. Dr. Judy here, Dr. Judy WTF, What the Freud, and I'm really excited to present a topic that I think everyone can identify with, and we're going to break it down according to the mind map system, which I will get into detail about for those of you who have never seen the show. So the topic of today is dependency, codependency, and interdependence. And this is a call-in show, so please do call in 323-843-2826 and get on the couch and please share your thoughts, your feelings, your views on this subject, which is a subject that crosses all cultural lines because this is a human condition. We are dependent, we are codependent, and we, if lucky, we separate and individuate and mature enough so that we can be interdependent. So a little bit about how we're going to break down this system of dependency gone right and dependency gone wrong. I want to introduce you to the mind map system, something that I created a long time ago to heal global disconnect, and I'm now using to heal human disconnect as a therapeutic systemic model. So I and the staff at the Psychological Healing Center use this system to break down wounds of childhood, how they embed and encode, and how to morph out of these horrible negative patterns and core beliefs so that we can reboot the system and reboot into mental health. So please put up the mind map so I can explain in a little bit more detail. Thank you very much. So the mind map is a from, through, to model. From the problem, through dismantling the problem, to the solution. The top third represents our past. The middle third of the mind map represents the problems and chaos of today. And the bottom third represents where we're going. We're wanting to morph into and reboot and paradigm shift into health. So everything is predicated on wounds of childhood. And so when we are wounded in the first few months of life, the first few years of life, what happens is that we experience a disconnect, mother-infant disconnect, father-infant disconnect, and these disconnections leave us compromised. They leave a shadow over our psychological well-being. And as a result of this shadow, we then have reactions to these wounds. And let me explain a little bit more about what I mean by wounds. There are 5 basic ones that I speak much about. Physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, neglect, and smothering. And so when we're wounded in childhood, we have reactions, obviously, to these wounds, and these wounds encode into the fiber of our being into what I refer to as negative encodings, negative core beliefs that then get triggered. These negative core beliefs can be beliefs like, I don't matter, or I'm not good enough, or I'm stupid, or I'm ugly. And we will get into negative core beliefs that represent codependency and negative core beliefs that represent the unhealthy forms of dependency. So when we look at these childhood wounds, we're also looking at John Bowlby's work on attachment theory and how this affects our level of differentiation, because when we are nurtured when we have eye contact, skin contact, when we have good enough parenting, meaning breastfeeding, stay-at-home mothering, stay-at-home attention, attunement, mirroring in the form of really attuning to our needs when the family structure is intact, when there is a pretty calm atmosphere, then we're going to be receiving what I call psychonutrients. I know we have a caller, so we'll go on in a minute. I will take the call, and remember the topic being dependency, codependency, and interdependency. So, hi, you're on the couch with Dr. Judy. Who's this, please?
Hi, my name is Pam.
Hi, Pam. Nice to meet you. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from West Virginia.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so tell me a little bit about what inspired you to call in today.
Well, I have notifications set up on my phone for Dr. Judy's YouTube channel.
Okay.
And so I just got a notification that it was live, and I clicked over and saw the topic.
Okay.
And was a little bit speechless. I've been, in the last few weeks, looking specifically at the differences between codependency, interdependency, and what that means. I grew up in a home with what I now believe is a borderline personality disorder in my mother.
Okay.
And she was a single parent for a long time. She did remarry when I was about 9. I'm 48 years old now. And over the years, there's just been this ebb and flow of coming to terms with what life was like with her, the whole family walking on eggshells when she would have those moments, pitting siblings against each other. I'm now an adult who's chosen to go no contact and move into a place in my life of more wholeness and greater healing. But I'm a little overwhelmed at times with how this has permeated my relationships over the years in ways that I didn't even realize. And just I'm in a partnership now. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, tell me about your current relationship.
I'm in a relationship now. I believe I have a general core belief that, for me personally anyway, the relationships that I've been in over the years, I'm in for a reason. There's something in me that gravitates towards that person for a reason. And I love my partner. I absolutely love my partner. There are things that I struggle to deal with in terms of a temper, inability to connect deeply, express physical affection. There are some challenges there. But all in all, I don't have things that I have historically had, and I view that as a good thing. So I'm not in a relationship now that attempts to dominate and control every little thing I do. I'm not in a relationship now that causes me at times to feel like I don't have a voice. I do feel like I have a voice. I feel like I can express the emotions that I feel when they come up. I feel like we may hash things out, but we get over it and we end up laughing together again. So
So it sounds like this is a pretty progressive relationship. What do you think your negative core belief is?
My negative core beliefs, and oh my gosh, I love your chart. I can't wait to find out more about this video teaching or something that you've got going on, because I'm kind of stuck in what I see on your chart. But my negative core belief about myself is that I am just somehow fundamentally flawed. There is just, from birth, probably pre-birth, something wrong with me. I recognize, thanks to, in large part, to your teaching, you know, you talk about the abuses and the kinds of brokenness that we can experience. I can check off every single one of those.
So look, let me start connecting the dots for you and the audience regarding dependency. Healthy dependency is necessary for healthy independence. So if you're raised by a borderline personality disordered mother, which in terms of a system gone wrong perspective way, what we're looking at is a mother who at the core has abandonment issues, at the core does not know how to regulate her emotions. And so being that that is the atmosphere that you grew up in, correct? I'm imagining.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm imagining that she would then need to use her children to regulate her emotionally. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, very familiar with that.
Okay. Okay. So there's a lot going on here. Then you turn into a parentified child. So then you get the message that you're not okay unless she's okay. So there's part of that codependency that you have to make her better in order for her to be a mother to you. And that's not a system gone right. That's a system gone wrong. Get it? Okay? And so
Yeah.
so let's mind map this thing, and maybe the audience can follow along and connect the dots. And of course, if you're listening and not seeing, you can always download my mind map in the form section off of my website, drjudywtf.com or psychologicalhealingcenter.com, which is a long one. So take the shortcut way if you like. So being that, let's mind map you. Okay, wounds of childhood, mother-infant disconnect. So she was disconnected from her mother, probably, and her father. So can you see multi-generational disconnect here?
Yes, and that has been part of my journey. I did take the time to try to understand the context of her own experiences and what led her to these mechanisms of survival for her, I think.
Okay, and unfortunately, you became part of the survival mechanism, I'm thinking, because when a mother is not well and she has children, especially if the father doesn't co-parent and nurture the nurturer, this is a system, after all. So if you look at panel 1 and you look at wounds of childhood, you could probably understand that her impulse, lack thereof, and her emotional needs vampired you of your burgeoning emotions. So you never got that healthy dependence. On the contrary, she was leaning on you. So as a result of that, you had a reaction to the wound of probably overwhelm, and then encoded in you that you're flawed. Why are you flawed? Because children want to please their parents. Okay, so from a child's point of view, you're flawed because you failed your mother. You failed her because she has exorbitant emotional needs. You can never fulfill on these needs, so no matter what you do, you're flawed. You're a failure. So as a result of this, you see how you would be tripped up into being triggered by not feeling good enough if you don't please, not feeling good enough if you don't meet the emotional needs of your partner. Can you see how you'd be tripped up by that?
Wow, yes. So how does this translate then? I have noticed that one thing that I can't seem to shake in the patterns that I get involved in when I'm with someone who genuinely reciprocates and has what I think, even though I don't know that I experience it this way, but I think cognitively I can see that there's a healthier display of and balance of interdependence with independence, but I get very uncomfortable in that.
Well,
I get
I'm so glad you called, because
uncomfortable.
if you don't mind, I'm going to use you as a case study right now to illustrate the points that I'm going to be making during the show. And I won't keep you on for the whole show because I want to give an opportunity for other people to call in. But basically, what's happening is that because you've been so trained to meet her needs, which is really the definition of the narcissistic model, is that when the child is really in service of the parent rather than vice versa, because the way it's supposed to flow is that the mother trickles down her emotional goodies to the baby, the infant, the child. The child depends on that, gets nourished by that, and then starts to separate and individuate in a healthy fashion. In the case of mothers who are borderline, narcissistic, needy, greedy, so on, injurious, and fathers that are same, or fathers that are absent and therefore put too much of a load on the mother, the whole system starts to collapse and everything leans on the child. So if you look at panel number 3, you can see that a healthy system is where the blue part of the DNA strand represents the pillar of the father. Okay, this is a metaphor for the father. The pink represents the metaphor for the pillar of the mother. And then through their union, through their support, through their family structuring, the children get to grow. They get to climb the ladder of emotional maturity and then manifest. However, if father's missing, if mother's missing, if one of the parents or both of the parents are not well, if the flow is reversed and the child has to do the emotional nourishing of the parent, then could you see? Trigger, panel 4, 5, 6. What the Freud? And this becomes a repetitive pattern. In your case, you might have done this with past partnerships, and now you're in a partnership with somebody that sounds healthier, except for one problem. Okay, and here's the problem, is that you don't know how to take in because you're not used to it. You've been busy giving, because that's what you've been trained to do. So now it's like a foreign object coming at you. So here's this healthy model of interdependence, and in a way you don't really trust it because your model for relationships is that somebody's going to vampire you. Somebody's going to put upon you a lot of demands. Somebody is going to use your emotions to basically bolster their emotions. Is this making more sense to you now?
Yes. Yes, and I've continued to have a lot of questions about my current partnership only because I'm so aware of the impact of this shaping and the factors that went into shaping who I am and how I think and how I feel. And so I have an awareness that I might not be the best judge of what is and is not healthy, but I'm present with it.
Okay, but
and
you're
better than I used to be. So I just keep going. But I have had concerns. There have been things that have come up where I've caught myself thinking, ooh, yuck, that feels familiar.
Yes. And if it feels familiar,
have I attracted to familiarity again?
Okay. So one of the things that I say over and over again in my therapy, in my book, in the videotape that I hope will be edited by tonight, let's keep our fingers crossed, and just to show you what it looks like, if you could put that up on the board. It's under resources, and it will be available, keeping fingers crossed, really soon. I don't want to release it until it's in really nice shape. It's almost there. But I keep repeating, parents set the bar, okay? Parents set the bar. And if it's a low bar, then you'll probably do a what the Freud around a low bar. And if it's a higher bar, then you're going to have a better blueprint to blueprint after. And chances are you'll be picking better for yourself. So Pam, just get the concept that healthy dependency will lead to a mature, self-actualized person, which will then be able to co-create a relationship. Now we're over in panel number 7, which represents interdependence, because when we are able to grow, self-actualize, individuate, launch out of our family structure, we are then ready to merge with another healthy individual and create light, create interdependence, whereby you're not leaning on each other and falling apart like in panel 4. You're supporting each other and you're bettering each other, and you are actually sharing and co-creating, and it's that 1 + 1 is more than just who you are in that kind of relationship. So I want you to continue to study the system. It really is just that. It's a system gone wrong. No blame, shame here. It's merely that. It's multi-generational. It has cross-cultural overtones. Some cultures injure their children in specific ways. This is something that I bring up a lot in the therapy, also in the mind map video that I created in the book. So just keep learning, and thank you so much for calling in. I'm going to elaborate a little bit more and take some time to give opportunity for other people to call in. And by all means, get a copy of the book, the video when it's out, and feel free to call in. And I will, if you want to, pair you with one of the team members for the mind map journey. Okay.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yes.
I've tried to contact your office in, I believe California is where you're located.
Yes.
But sent an email. I will try to do that again, perhaps.
Yeah, please. And
Thank
if
you.
that doesn't make it, Dr. Judy at psychologicalhealingcenter.com, DRJUDY at psychologicalhealingcenter.com. That'll for sure get to me. Okay, thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, good night. Bye-bye. Okay, and so for anyone else who would like to get on the couch, we have another caller. So, hi, you're on the couch with Dr. Judy. Who's this, please?
Oh, this is Susan.
Hi, Susan. How you doing?
Hi. Is this Dr. Judy?
It is.
Oh, hi. You're still talking on my video. So in this room, it's Susan calling from Toronto, Canada.
Oh, hi, Susan from Toronto. My neighbor. I used to live in Montreal, Canada. So nice to talk to you.
I remember.
Yes.
Yeah, it's good to speak with you and hear your voice again. I've missed you.
Thank you. It's nice to hear your voice, too. Yeah.
Thank you. I could really relate with the previous caller, and your topic really spoke to me as well. I've been waiting to have something like this addressed in a forum like this on YouTube, and it was just amazing that that you had chosen that for tonight's show. And I could relate with a lot of the things that you'd already discussed with her.
Okay.
And I've also been doing some of your mind map systems, but I've had to recently put it down because I've been diagnosed with complicated grief since my father passed.
I'm sorry to hear
and
that.
I flew to New York to the Center for Complicated Grief, and I've been doing that treatment because the anniversary of his death hit me so hard. So I was like, okay, I will come back to Dr. Judy once I'm in triage mode, and I will get this tended to, and then but tonight I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to call in.
Okay.
So this is the one. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, how does this particular topic relate to your life right now?
Sure. So what I'm noticing is that whenever I have interactions with my mother, which I've been trying to do low to no contact, because I know that I struggled with the self or the individuation process, and obviously I want to get to self-actualization and form healthier relationships. I find it really hard to maintain and enforce my boundaries with her and not get swallowed up into that dysfunctional pattern that I feel that that we have created, or the dynamic that my family, has existed in.
Okay.
And then I also am having a hard time knowing, after a year of pretty much isolating, pushing people away from me, how to let them in. So my questions are the following: how do you individuate at a later stage in life?
Okay,
and how
beautiful
do you form
question.
interdependent relationships when I'm feeling it's hard for me to know who's emotionally safe? Like, I've been trying to let people into my inner circle, and then they're just, the intensity factor is just too much, or then they're hot and cold, and then I just go, whoa. And I back up,
Perfect question. And again, I'm going to address this via the mind map, and let's go to panel number 5, because panel number 5 is a metaphor for the isms. Let's use it as a metaphor for the individual isms. self-actualization versus being compromised and not being able to self-actualize, and what happens as a result of these wounds of childhood. So you could see that panel 5 has a bunch of different bubbles. Okay, let's pretend that they're cells. And so going back to the cell model, biology 101, we know that there are semi-permeable cells, we know that there are permeable cells, and we know that there are non-permeable cells. So guess which cells live and which ones die?
My goodness, sorry, my mind isn't functioning right
It's
now.
okay, I'll help you out.
Okay.
Okay, so just imagine a cell in your body, okay? And it is all
Okay.
walled up and nothing can come in. Nothing. Everything stays within. Okay, so what happens to that cell?
Well, it would die.
Right, and so if we're injured and we're violated, then we will build up a wall to shield ourselves, correct? You see?
Yeah.
Okay, so then we will not be able to take in the light. We won't be able to take in unconditional love. We'll have this reaction formation, if you will, to taking in love, because we will see it as an intrusion. We'll see it as something that smothers us. Okay, makes sense? And so it's almost like a little bit of PTSD from the past. Oh my God, the love is coming my way. The relationship is coming my way. Oh wow, they're going to vampire me. Oh wow, I'm going to be less than who I am. Oh wow, I don't even know if I have enough of a core sense of self to share my core sense of self. So that would be you shutting down. Okay, now let's look at the other one. Completely permeable. That means everything comes in. Does that cell live?
Well, it gets bombarded.
It's overwhelmed.
Susceptible. Overwhelmed.
Yeah, flooded. So if you have a parent that's flooding you and intrusive, then originally the wound is that you've been flooded and that you have no mechanism to discriminate and shut those gates. Everything is just flooding you. So it's almost like they violated your boundaries. Okay, so if they've violated your boundaries, then we're pretty much priming the pump for codependency, right? Because that's how you get love. You just allow people to violate your boundaries. You become a people pleaser. You become codependent. You're dependent on them being dependent on you because that's how you think that you're going to be loved, correct? Okay, so that system doesn't work because it's just going to vampire you. You're going to be drained in no time. And so it's like I relate to the three little bears in the chairs. Okay, so one is creating a wall, one is creating a boundary violation of a free-for-all. And then the cell that lives, obviously, is the cell that allows for discrimination so that you can let in the good and keep out the bad. So you asked an excellent question. So how do you do that when you're an adult, right? Okay. So how I do that, how the team does that, is we go back to the original wound and we reprocess the feelings about being violated. We reprocess the patterns that you've selected into your life that match the WTF, that keep repeating the pattern. So number one, we get you conscious of what's going on. Number two, we let the poison out about what happened. And number three, we reboot the system so that you have proper boundaries and you can recognize what's nourishing, you can recognize what's vampiring, and you can recognize when you're just in an isolationism and not letting anything in, because that way you're going to die on the vine too. See? So it's a real process of waking up, becoming conscious, and then clearing the slate, the emotional slate, closing those emotional files so you don't do a WTF on yourself, and then rebooting into better boundaries and a recognition of what healthy interdependence is. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense, and thank you for explaining that. I
Okay.
guess part of me also wondered just about the inner child, the wounded child, the inner
Yes.
critic, that work. Is that also tied into that piece of going back to...
Yeah, absolutely. Because what parents do inadvertently, it's not like most parents wake up in the morning and say, I'm gonna mess up my child. This is all multi-generational. It's very unconscious. So what happens is they plant the seed for putting in the hook of dependency into the child, so their emotional needs are going to be intuited by you, and then they're going to reward you, so to speak, for your being a good little girl and meeting mommy's needs. And when you do so, then you feel that you're going to get some sort of reward for that. And then if you don't do that, you feel overly responsible, and then you will spend lots of energy trying to feed the parent that has a deficit in emotional development. It's really, really a very tiring, toxic emotional system, and that's what I call vampiring.
I see. Okay. Well, thanks for explaining that, and it's making a lot of sense.
You're very
and
welcome.
It explains why I'm so exhausted,
Yes,
too, because
yes.
I don't have the bandwidth right now. So it's like self-preservation mode.
Yes, and speaking of bandwidth, what happens with codependency is neither partner has the bandwidth, so they lean on each other. And rather than co-create a healthy, interconnected relationship that flourishes and everybody grows, panel 7, okay, what happens is that they're clashing and bashing and vampiring and taking each other's light, and everybody is just kind of leaning on each other because no one has enough. So, these two poor crippled souls are kind of caving in on each other and collapsing, panel 4, 5, 6, because their defenses are breaking down. They can't hold it together. Okay, so just look at it as a system gone wrong. It'll be a lot easier than trying to define it in terms of, I have dependency, I have codependency, I have interdependency. I mean, these are all nice terms, but it's not going to explain a lot. Even labels like borderline or narcissism, we use these labels to kind of have a common language, but just look at it like the dominoes weren't set up properly. Nothing is going to come of a damaged system. It's going to break down because it's not sustainable. Unhealth is not sustainable. Things that are based on misinformation will eventually collapse into chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. Okay, so I hope that clarifies a lot. And thank you.
Sure does.
Thank you so much for calling in. And if you want to consolidate this information, you know where to get the book, which is on my website or Amazon.com. And then the video will be out. And of course, we have the team, myself, helping people to dissect this via the mind map system. So very much appreciate you sharing this. And I'll elaborate a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Judy.
You're welcome.
Take care.
Okay, you too.
Bye for now.
Okay. Good night. Bye. Okay, must be late in Toronto, Canada. I remember the cold winter months there. And in my case, I remember the many, many layers of scarves my grandmother wound around my neck and my forehead. And the minute I got away from her, I would just peel everything off. So thanks for bringing up that memory right there. Okay, so can you see how this system gone wrong of leaning on each other can create a lot of stress on the system and on the individual? So I want to read a little bit about some of the results of this. Okay, so some self-esteem obviously is going to be affected, because if two people are leaning on each other, nobody's going to grow and nobody's going to enhance anyone. So there's this sense of a fragile self-worth, making people who are in this dysfunctional system feel very highly sensitive. And here's another point. Their ability to assert in a relationship is highly constrained, and then they feel guilty afterwards. So if they don't please the person, if they don't fulfill, there's a sense of of shame and guilt involved. And then there's a sense of responsibility which centers more on the other person's feelings. So this is in relationship to codependency. So why is someone going to try to fulfill on someone else's needs? Well, one possibility is that there's an underlying fear of being alone. And so they then enter into a bad deal. So the deal is something like, okay, I'll take care of you. You lean on me. Don't grow, of course, because if you grow, you might leave me. So I'll just keep you kind of in a crippled state all your life, and you do the same for me, and we can just kind of hobble through life without growing. And that way we're sure not to leave each other, because if we leave each other, we're just not going to be in good shape at all. So these are really, really bad deals. That underlying fear of being alone and abandoned is at the core of something like this. People feel, in a sense, that they're victims to the system, but yet they don't want to get out of the system because many people don't know how to get out of the system. And so in a sense, they're feeling like they're loyal to the system by playing this dysfunctional game, but it really doesn't serve anyone. I want to go back for a minute to Murray Bowen and his concept of separation and individuation and what that really means in terms of developmental psychology. I want to bring in the concept of this self-actualization, because in order for us to be healthy individualisms, we need these emotional nutrients. We need to be able to have this healthy dependency so that we can flourish. What do we see with babies? We see babies walking away from their mother, their father, and checking back. And so if the mother or the father is smothering them, if the mother or the father is hinting to them that they shouldn't leave because they're in emotional trouble and they better come back and take care of mom and dad, there's no room for them to play. There's no room for exploration. And so these toxic ties back into the system will stop that child from venturing forward and exploring the world. And this is very, very tragic, because this is one way in which we limit the growth of our children. We limit them by calling upon them consciously, unconsciously, to take care of our needs. So this is the flow backwards. In other words, instead of the parents fostering the needs of the child, they're demanding of the child to really shore up their own needs. And so the child will not venture out, the child will not express creativity, the child will not explore the world. And this is where the healthyism gets limited. Okay, so instead of expanding the self, growing the self, which then allows for people to enter into healthy relationships and share the light with other human beings, this self is reduced. It's kind of shattered over, shattered and shadowed over. And think of it as no nutrients to help the person grow, no psychological nutrients. And so then, as a result, we shrivel up. We don't develop, we become weaker, and every generation we just become weaker and weaker until we've got to lean on each other so hard that we're all hobbling emotionally and crumbling and imploding. So that brings me to the topic of what's an implosion? Well, an implosion is when we are caving in emotionally, and it can look like depression, and at the end of that spectrum, it can look like a suicide, because there's nothing really left. There's no inner of that human being. There's no inner core sense of self, which needs to be established in the first 2-3 years of life through this good enough parenting. And if that's not available to that child, then when they get into the relationship, they're getting more and more depleted. And don't forget, they don't even have enough for themselves. So now they're sharing very little with another human being. And everybody's getting so drained and tired from this. And then at the end of that road, people get really depressed. Then they turn to drug, sex, rock and roll. And we know that codependency is used as a word to describe people who are codependent on each other in AA. An alcoholic or alcoholic's wife or husband codependently wobbling along with each other. The alcoholic, for example, leans on the person who is their partner for excuses and for enabling them to continue this, and the other person continues to enable because, in essence, if that person grows, that person may not want to be there. And there's that underlying fear, again, of abandonment. So this is a call-in show, folks. Please call in 323-843-2826 and get on the couch and let's discuss this horrible system gone wrong because it's affecting and infecting everyone. And as we can see on a macro basis, we have more alcoholism, more implosions and suicides than ever before. We have more explosions and homicides than ever before. And so the system gone wrong can go inward with the implosions. Panel 6, if you could put up panel 6. This is the final breakdown. Thank you. And so when we're depleted, when we're emotionally empty, we don't sustain. And so we collapse or we explode. I want to talk to you a little bit more about these explosions. I think we have a call-in. So, yeah, hi, you are on the couch with Dr. Judy.
Hi, this is Sherry.
Hi, Sherry. How you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
Thank you. Thanks for calling in. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Indiana.
Oh, nice. Okay, Sherry. So what is it about the show that relates to your life?
Well, my mother is also borderline personality, and
Okay.
I'm also kind of dealing with dependency and codependency and trying very hard to be independent and yet just really getting punished for it.
Yeah, you're going to be punished for it. And this is where the shame comes in because the pump has been primed. If a parent needs you emotionally, if you're their fuel, so to speak, do you think that they're going to let you off the hook that easily?
Well, they've made it very, very difficult.
I'm sure.
Really difficult.
Right.
And, she's talking about the people stay in it because they fear abandonment and they fear being alone.
Yes.
And I don't know, maybe I've just gotten used to it or become impervious, or there's no other way for me to function. But I mean, that's really what I'm looking at right now.
So
it's just they don't talk to me. I'm left out of the family holidays. I don't exist right now.
And what did you do wrong? I put that in quotes. What's your misdemeanor here?
Well, the last I heard was I found a new job. I got a 2-bedroom apartment. I'm working at home. And when I went for on-the-job training, I decided I needed a garment bag. And whenever I said something specific like I need a garment bag, for this job training because I have to look nice and stuff, or I need a 2-bedroom apartment because I'm working at home, I need an office. I mean, they just immediately, especially my mother, just, undermined me and argued with me about it at every turn. And it's just so stupid and mundane.
Okay,
I mean, it's like, you have to take me down for a garment bag?
Well, that's how it's manifesting, but it's not about the garment bag. They're trying to knock you at the knees because what were you doing before you became independent?
Well, I was looking for a job. I was unemployed and underemployed. I was working for a dental insurance company for about $15 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I was barely getting by. A couple years before, this all started back in 2015 when my company let like 150 of us without warning. I mean, we just walked in one day and it was like, oh, hi, you don't have a job.
Okay, so
I had
now
no
tell
warning.
me this, and I'm sorry if I'm interrupting you. Tell me this: what was in it for them for you to be unemployed and down and out? What goodies did they get out of this?
Going for them for advice, needing to, not having a car, not having at one point no money to pay my rent.
Okay, so what did that give them? If you're down and out, you're going to them for advice, a car, what does that give them?
I guess it gave them something to do.
Gave them something to do. Maybe it gave them a sense of control over you. Okay, maybe it made them feel that somehow they were useful people because they were able to help you. I don't know. I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Okay. And now that you're growing and you're getting this job and garment bag and apartment, oh my God, you're slipping out of their circle. You're taking off. You're separating. You're individuating. And if your mother is BPD, guess what that's triggering off in her?
Yeah, I guess abandonment, feeling threatened.
Exactly. Okay, so you're separating and individuating is actually a psychological threat. And so your punishment is that you are going to be extinguished. You are banished. You are going to, the old saying, let's abandon before being abandoned. So they're feeling they're interpreting all of your growth as an abandonment. So they're going to cut you out before you launch. And so you're taking that to mean, as a core belief, what?
I'm just not loved.
Exactly. Okay, so you see how this whole system is now triggering a message that you incorporated into the fiber of your being that you're just not loved. And in this system gone wrong, in your family system gone wrong, being loved means catering to your family's needs and their feelings and not growing so that you could stay emotionally crippled forever and be their inner circle and not separate, individuate, and very much self-actualization. Can you see that?
Yeah, it's stifling, and the way they try to keep me from other family members.
Right, and then those family members get enlisted in their campaign against you. I call that the flying monkeys. You should see that episode. I have a lot of episodes on narcissistic mother, narcissistic father. I have episodes on sibling rivalry and how the whole dysfunctional system keeps unraveling. So definitely study those, okay? And by all means, look at this trap that you're in of what you have to do to be loved and ask yourself, are you willing to dumb it down? Are you willing to be an emotional cripple so that your parents can feel better and not feel threatened with your abandoning them? What do you think?
I can't do it anymore.
Good. Congratulations. So that's the first step is hitting that bottom and saying, that's it. I don't want to do this anymore. So I want to give maybe another opportunity. I know we're running kind of short on time, but definitely keep studying The System Gone Wrong. Get a copy of my book if you don't have one. It really breaks it down nicely. The video's out soon. Keeping my fingers very crossed on that one. And please do feel free to call in, contact our team, and we have people who work on various fee scales that can help you through this process so that we can take out the psychological poison that's been somehow infiltrated in there and has broken you down and reset your boundaries so that you're not at the effect of what other people are trying to position you into in order to feel better for themselves. Okay, so thank you so
Yeah, and it
much.
seems like I run into my mother at work.
That I'm
I mean,
sorry?
I get supervisors and managers who like bully me at work.
Okay, so this whole
Which
thing
I'm
is
dealing with it now.
repeating. It's just repeating. It's
Yeah.
what I call the WTF, the what the Freud. Okay, and
Yep.
and as long as you're functioning along the lines of my core belief is that I'm not lovable unless this and unless this is going to keep repeating. So you got to get off this broken record cycle. Okay.
Okay, when is your book going to be done?
The book is done. The video is going to be done.
Okay.
Hopefully tonight I'm going to go home and keep going on the editing of it and hopefully start the uploading process. And I'm also updating my book, so that'll be uploaded also, hopefully in the next few weeks. I'm really hoping everything will be ready and available, and people can do the mind map journey either on their own or with a therapist or combination of both. So yes, please look into that. It's on my website under resources. Okay?
Okay. All right.
All right. Thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Yeah, thank you. You do the same. Okay, so
Bye-bye.
thank you. Good night. Bye-bye. So is everybody getting it? I'm really dedicated to helping you guys think like a shrink, and I know that you are because I get so many calls, and the questions that you guys are asking me are really intelligent, and I could tell that you've been listening to many of the episodes because your vocabulary seems very in line with the system that I'm describing, and I think that once you start to understand that your wounds of childhood, which is the cause of all inorganic psychopathology, the cause of human disconnect, which leaves us hurting, which sets us up for horrible reactions and reactions that are very primitive of the amygdala, meaning of the emotional brain. They get into our psyche, they get into our bodies, leaving us feeling sick in a very broad sense, and then encode into our cognitions, into our belief systems, cognitions like I'm not good enough, I'm not valuable, I don't matter, I only matter if I help other people, I only matter if I'm of service to others. I mean, this is really the breeding ground for this unhealthy codependency, this unhealthy lack of the inner core, this unhealthy inability to really grow the core of the self and to eventually self-actualize and separate and individuate. So connecting all the dots here, we can now begin to see that people who come from borderline personality disordered parents, narcissistically injured parents, parents who themselves are devoid of psychological nutrients, multi-generationally so, how could they pass on their emotional nourishment to the next generation if they never received it? So one of the things that you can do is take a really broad view of this domino effect and think about your mother and your father and what kind of parenting they had and how they got nourished or not, and how they defended against their lack of inner core, and in some cases, drugs, sex, rock and roll, alcoholism, and so on and so forth. And then when you're in a family system of alcoholics or people who don't have enough to give, then unfortunately the child becomes vampired and they become the narcissistic supply for the parents, leaving them weaker, crippled, prone to being a people pleaser, prone to be codependent, feeling guilty that they cannot fill the never-ending void of the other person. And then, as the first caller brought up, feeling like if they don't do it, then they're bad. If they don't fill the hole in the soul of the other, they're bad people. So this is a very intricate, complicated system, and once you start to understand it and simplify it in terms of breaking it down via the mind map, I think a lot of your questions are going to be answered. So I don't know if we have any more time for call-ins. Do we have any more call-ins? Okay, so we're going to go to Shrink That Tune, unless anybody wants to call in last second. I'll give it a second or two, answering any more questions. And don't forget, you can always call me at the Psychological Healing Center, and I'll put you in touch with one of our team members. And please take advantage of the 15-minute free consultation. We're very available to you. And we do Skype therapy. We are treating people internationally. It's a lot of fun for me to talk to people all over the world. It feels like I'm able to travel without getting on a plane. It's so much fun to understand people's cultures and so on. And also suggest topics and songs. I'm open to that. And we're going to continue to go global, cross-cultural, and deeper. And I hope I've answered a lot of questions and connected a lot of dots. And I hope I'm helping you to think like a shrink. And I'm going to move now to Shrinking That Tune. And the tune that I picked for tonight, very appropriately, is called Lean on Me by Bill Withers. Very old song, but I thought perfect song for dependence and codependence and so on. So here are the lyrics. Sometimes in our lives we all have pain, we all have sorrow. But if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. So that's a very optimistic statement. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm going to need someone to lean on. Okay, so this doesn't necessarily mean codependence. It could just be, look, I'm here for you, you be here for me, we'll have a good deal here. But sometimes it could be a setup for, I'm going to base my relationship on leaning on each other. And I hope you lean on me, because if you lean on me, then I have something to give you, and now I have control over you. And now I could have that deal with you that I can ask of you anything I want because I've done so much for you. That's where the unhealth comes in. Please swallow your pride if I have things you need to borrow, for no one can fill those of your needs that you won't let show. So yeah, you see, it's a matter of how we're using this information. Lean on me in a way of support, or lean on me and kind of topple me over. You just call on me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need someone to lean on. I just might have a problem that you'll understand. We all need someone to lean on. And yes, we do. We all need each other. We are wired to connect. It's just that when we don't have enough to give and we co-create these dysfunctional relationships, we're not leaning on each other. We're toppling each other over. And that's the problem. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm going to need someone to lean on. And the chorus goes on. If there is a load you have to bear that you can't carry, I'm right up the road. I'll share your load. And yes, it's possible to help other human beings and share their load if we are strong within our inner core and we have something to give. And when we have the light to give, then we can share the light with other people without feeling depleted. If we hook up with somebody that all we're doing is sharing and sharing and sharing, and they're taking and taking and taking from us, that's your red flag right there. If you just call on me, if you need a friend, call me. If you need a friend, if you ever need a friend, call me. So there's a lot of call me's here. So the message is, that it's okay to lean on people and be there for other people. It's just that when it becomes a dysfunctional system of depletion, that's where your red flag signals need to go off. And that's where you start thinking to yourself, I wonder why I'm feeding this person so much and why I'm feeling so tired and drained at the end of this process. So please continue to think about the systems gone wrong in your life, and please continue to connect the dots. And it's always such a pleasure to share this information. I'm open to suggestions for topics and songs, and thank you so much for listening and calling in. Appreciate all the interesting call-ins, and I will see you next week. Good night, everybody.